7 greatest female warriors in human history, heroines of the ancient world. Bravery and warfare are often associated with masculinity. However, a few women have earned their place in history by demonstrating incredible courage and determination in battle. In today's episode, we look at 7 heroines of the ancient world who defied the cultural norms of gender roles and defended their people against enemy invasion. Number 7. Amina Sukhera. Amina Sukhera, simply referred to as Amina, was a Housa-Muslim warrior and Queen of Zazzau in present-day Kaduna state in the northwest of Nigeria. Amina was born in 1533 to King Nikatau and Queen Bakwaturunku of Zazzau. She was raised in her father's court and trained in military and political matters. Amina soon gained notoriety for her military skills and became a distinguished warrior in the Zazzau royal cavalry. After her father's death in 1566, Amina's brother Karami became king, and Amina was made commander of the cavalry. But Karami ruled only for 10 years and died of unknown causes. Amina was crowned queen in 1576. Just 3 months after her coronation, she launched a military campaign against the neighboring Hausa kingdoms. With 20,000 foot soldiers and 1,000 cavalry troops, she conquered territories and extended her kingdom as far as the Benue River Valley in central Nigeria. Amina was continuously on military campaigns. She is said to take a new lover in each town she invaded, but the sexual relations were always brief as she murdered him before progressing to the next town. That way, she avoids any sentimental attachments that could interfere with her conquest. By the end of her 34-year reign, Zazzau had become the most extensive of the 7 Hausa kingdoms. She built earthen fortifications around her conquered territory, which today are referred to as the Amina Walls. She was the first to establish a formal kind of government in the Hausa land and forced the other 6 Hausa kingdoms to pay her tribute. Amina is also credited for introducing kola nut cultivation in northern Nigeria and creating West African trade routes to northern Africa. Number 6. Mavia of the Tanukhs. Mavia was an Arab warrior queen of the Tanukhs, a confederation of nomadic tribes in southern Syria. During her reign, southern Syria was part of Rome's Arabian province. There had been a lot of religious differences between the Tanukhs and Roman rule. When Mavia's husband, king of the Tanukhs, died in 375 AD, the Roman Emperor Valens, an Arian anti-Orthodox, rejected the Tanukhs' request for an Arab Orthodox bishop, appointing an Arian bishop instead. Arianism was a religious doctrine in the Roman era, which contradicted the ideology of Trinity in mainstream Christianity. Mavia withdrew from her capital city, Aleppo, into the desert with her soldiers and formed an alliance with other desert tribes across Syria and Arabia in preparation for a rebellion against Roman rule. Knowing that she could not take on the mighty Rome in open combat, she established her base in the heart of the desert. In the spring of 378 AD, she launched a guerrilla war, defeating the Romans in several battles, as the Romans were left without a standing target upon which they could inflict retribution. They also defeated the Roman governor's forces in Palestine and Phoenicia and won the townspeople's sympathy. The revolt quickly spread from Arabia through Palestine right to the borders of Egypt. Another massive Roman military force was dispatched, which met Mavia in open battle. This time, Mavia used a mixture of both Roman and Tanukhid military tactics, and surprisingly, the Romans were again defeated. At this second victory, Mavia had garnered local support to an extent that it seemed as though the whole of the Eastern Roman Empire would break away into Mavia's rule. Emperor Valens had no choice but to sue for peace. Mavia is considered to be the most powerful woman in the history of ancient Arabia after Zenobia. Number 5. Zenobia. Zenobia was a 3rd century queen of the Palmyrene Empire in Syria. After the assassination of her husband, the king, Zenobia became the regent of her son Vabalithus. She exercised de facto authority throughout the realm. During this time, Palmyra was part of the Eastern Roman Empire. The Palmyrene king controlled a large part of the Roman East, with his authority superseding that of the Roman provincial governor. This was unusual and unprecedented, but was permitted by the Roman Emperor Gallienus so as to avoid any conflicts with Palmyra. However, the death of Zenobia's husband meant that the position and authority of the Palmyrene ruler had to be redefined. While the Roman court viewed the Palmyrene ruler as an appointed official of the emperor, the Palmyrene court considered their king a semi-autonomous hereditary ruler. As a result, Rome dispatched the commander of the Praetorian Guard, Aurelius Heraclianus, to impose complete imperial authority on Palmyra, but was attacked and defeated by Zenobia's forces. Not only was Zenobia seeking to assume her late husband's full authority, but she was also determined to extend her territory into other parts of the Roman Empire. In the spring of 270, while the emperor was fighting a Germanic tribe in Thrace, Zenobia invaded Bostra, the capital city of Rome's Arabian province, defeated the Roman legion, killed the Roman governor Trassus, and sacked the city. She continued south along the Jordan Valley and subdued Judea and other regions, and took complete control of Roman Arabia. By November of 270, the royal mint in Antioch started producing coins in Zenobia's son's name instead of the Roman emperor's name. Zenobia then landed the Roman province of Egypt with 70,000 soldiers and defeated the Roman regiment. At that time, Rome could not respond as they were entangled in a succession crisis following Emperor Claudius's death. After the invasion of Egypt, Palmyra officially broke with Rome, with Zenobia assuming the title of empress and her son the title of emperor. However, she was eventually defeated by Rome sometime later. Number 4. Lu Mu. Lu Mu, or Mother Lu, was a Chinese rebel leader against the Qin dynasty in 14 AD. 5 years prior, the chief minister Wang Meng had seized the imperial throne and proclaimed himself emperor of the Qin dynasty. Wang Meng implemented many totalitarian and extortionist policies, which caused a lot of economic and social distress to both the peasants and the wealthy landowners. In the year 14 AD, Mother Lu's son, Lu Yu, was executed by one of Meng's magistrates for a minor offense. Mother Lu was heartbroken and determined to get revenge for her son. Coming from a family of wealthy merchants, she gradually built a network of supporters by offering gifts to radical youths who were already frustrated with Meng's rule, and also by directly recruiting outlaws who had taken refuge in a nearby island. She soon raised an army of several thousand people and launched an outright rebellion, taking control of the entire district and crushing the forces loyal to the regime. While the populace settled scores with corrupt government officials, Mother Lu captured the magistrate who executed her son, beheaded him, and sacrificed the head on her son's tomb to appease his spirit. Mother Lu's rebellion spurred a series of riots throughout the country against Meng's rule, and her followers rapidly grew to tens of thousands of soldiers. Though advanced in age and later dying of natural causes, Mother Lu's soldiers continued the struggle and joined forces with other rebel groups to create the Red Eyebrows movement, which overthrew Wang Meng's regime and ended the Qin dynasty. Mother Lu is known to be the first female rebel leader in Chinese history. Number 3. The Trung Sisters. Trung Trac and Trung Ni, jointly referred to as the Trung Sisters, were Vietnamese rebel leaders and heroines of the Vietnamese independence movement. They led the first national uprising against foreign domination following the Chinese invasion of Vietnam. They were born into a wealthy aristocratic family in northern Vietnam. The Chinese governor to Vietnam ruled with cruelty and tyranny. When Trac's husband, who was the Vietnamese lord of the local district, tried to restrain him, the governor had him beheaded without trial. In response, Trung Trac, the elder sister, launched a rebellion to avenge the unfair execution of her husband. The sisters solicited the support of other Vietnamese tribes and gathered over 80,000 fighting men. The two sisters fought fearlessly on war elephants, overrunning Chinese settlements and crushing Chinese forces, thereby forcing the Chinese governor to run for his life. By the end of 40 AD, the Trung sisters had taken control of 65 towns, breaking Vietnam from Chinese rule and proclaiming Trung Trac, the elder sister, as Queen of Vietnam. The sisters established their royal court in the Hong River Plain. They abolished the excessive taxes imposed by the Chinese and introduced a simple form of governance in accordance with Vietnamese customs. Unfortunately, the Trung regime was constantly under attack by the Chinese government and was eventually defeated in 43 AD. Though their reign was brief, the Trung sisters are highly revered in Vietnam for being the first to challenge the Chinese occupation of Vietnam after 247 years of unopposed dominion. Their action is believed to have inspired a matriarchal Vietnamese society where there are no barriers for women to take on leadership roles. Number 2. Ibaka Chota. Ibaka Chota was a warrior queen of Ulal in the Indian state of Karnataka who fought the Portuguese in the latter part of the 16th century. Ibaka belonged to the Chota dynasty, which practiced a matrilineal heritage system, making her the heir to her uncle's throne. Ula was one of the most thriving ports and centers for spice trade to Arabia and to the West. Being the prosperous port that it was, European powers, especially Portugal, scrambled for its control. After attacking the coast of Canara and destroying the Mangalore port in 1525, the Portuguese invaded the neighboring Goa. From there, they had their eyes on Ula. But Ibaka was well-trained and highly skilled in diplomacy and military strategy, with a very diversified army. She went further to forge alliances with other local rulers and powerful kings to keep the Portuguese at bay. In 1555, the Portuguese made their first move by asking Ibaka to pay them tribute, a request which she simply ignored. In response, Portugal sent an army under Admiral Dom Álvaro da Silveira, who was easily repulsed by the superior strength of Ibaka's army. In 1568, Portugal sent a fleet of soldiers under General Peixoto, who succeeded in invading Ula and its royal court. But Ibaka escaped and launched a counterattack that killed most of the Portuguese soldiers, including General Peixoto and Admiral Mascarenhas. Also, over 70 Portuguese soldiers were taken prisoner. At this defeat, the Portuguese were forced to completely withdraw from Mangalore. During her reign, Ibaka repulsed Portuguese invasion for over 40 years. She is credited for being one of the first Indians to fight colonialism. She is referred to as the Fearless Queen. Before we get to the top of our countdown list, please do not forget to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Number 1. Budaka. Budaka was the queen of the Iceni, a Celtic tribe in East Anglia, who spearheaded the revolt against Rome in the year 60 AD. The Iceni king, Prasutagus, was an ally of Rome and supported the Roman invasion of Britain. Prasutagus divided his estate between the Roman Emperor Nero and his 2 daughters, hoping to gain the favor of the Roman Empire and to preserve his kingdom. Unfortunately, as soon as he died, the Roman governor to Britannia Suetonius Paulinus ignored Prasutagus' will and invaded the Iceni people. When the widowed queen Budaka tried to object, Paulinus had her flogged in public and her daughters raped by Roman soldiers. The Iceni chieftains were also given similar treatment. Their properties were seized and their families were treated like slaves. In revenge, Budaka gathered Iceni warriors, rallied neighboring tribes, and launched a revolt against Roman invasion. She launched her first attack on a Roman settlement in the city of Camulodunum, present-day Colchester. The Roman veterans there are said to have mistreated the indigenous people of Britannia. Budaka slaughtered the Roman inhabitants, the city guards, and all 200 auxiliary troops dispatched to protect the city. Following the Camulodunum massacre, Rome dispatched a military legion under General Petilius Ceralius to suppress the revolt and capture Budaka. But Budaka and her Iceni rebels engaged them and annihilated the entire infantry platoon. Only the commander and a few of his cavalry managed to escape. Hearing of this defeat, the Roman procurator, Catus Decianus, escaped from the island and fled to Gaul, present-day France. Budaka and her rebels then marched on Londinium, present-day London, a Roman commercial settlement and major Roman stronghold. During this time, the Roman governor Suetonius Paulinus was leading an expedition against Druid rebels in northern Wales. But with the news of the second defeat and hearing that the rebels were now marching on London, Suetonius had to withdraw from his campaign to face Budaka and protect the Roman population. Upon arriving in London, Suetonius realized that his troops were far outnumbered by the rebels, so he decided to abandon the city to its fate. Budaka slaughtered the residents of London, looted the city, and set it ablaze. From London, she moved to Verulamium, present-day St. Albans, another Roman settlement, killing its inhabitants and setting it on fire. About 80,000 people are estimated to have been killed by Budaka's rebels in the 3 Roman settlements destroyed. Budaka was bent on revenge. Her mission was to slaughter. She had no interest in taking prisoners. While Budaka continued her attack on Verulamium, Suetonius regrouped the Roman forces and auxiliaries and amassed over 10,000 men from the 14th Legion, a regiment of highly experienced soldiers, and intercepted Budaka's rebels at the Watling Street. The rebels launched crowded and unsystematic attacks on the Roman defense lines, but an order was given and thousands of heavy Roman javelins were thrown at them, followed by a second volley of heavy javelins and then a third. The rebels suffered severe casualties within the first few minutes of the battle. The few surviving Britons were engaged by the Roman infantry. Budaka's army was severely defeated. She wasn't killed in battle, but is believed to have taken her own life shortly after that. Though the revolt wasn't successful, it inflicted significant casualties on Rome to the point that the Emperor Nero considered withdrawing totally from Britannia. Fearing the outbreak of another rebellion and preferring a cordial relationship with the Britons, the emperor replaced the radical Suetonius Paulinus with the more conciliatory Petronius Turpilianus as governor of Britannia. Thank you for watching, and please do well to check out our next video right here.